Hello, friends. Good evening. I'm Abhinav Pandya, your host for today's program, and I would like to welcome all of you to today's segment of Usanas Dialogues. Today, we have a very interesting discussion because we are living in a very interesting world. As we know that the recent ceasefire has taken place between Israel and Iran, but we still cannot say that this is the end of the war. And we look forward to many interesting things happening around the world. So we have a very amazing panel of experts today here to discuss the situation in West Asia, and we'll include different aspects of the current ongoing conflict in our today's discussion. And we'll also explore how this conflict is going to impact the larger regional issues and also the global issues, because in many strategic quarters, the experts are already saying that we have actually entered into a phase where we are gradually or rapidly moving towards a World War III. But is it the case or not? So I think our experts will answer all these questions today. So I would like to welcome all our experts. I'll introduce them and then we'll begin with today's event. We have Dr. Michael Barak with us. He's a senior researcher at the Institute for Counterterrorism of Lauder School of Government, Diplomacy and Strategy at the Reichman University. Dr. Barak is also a lecturer in the Reichman University. Then we have Dr. Gedalia Afterman. Dr. Gedalia Afterman is the head of the Asia Policy Program at the Abba Eban Institute for International Diplomacy and Foreign Relations and a lecturer at Reichman and Tel Aviv University. Then we have Mr. Burzin Wagmar. He's a senior fellow at Usanas Foundation and Center for Iranian Studies, affiliated with the University of London's School of Oriental and African Studies. And I just forgot to mention that Dr. Michael Barak is also a senior fellow at Usanas Foundation. So welcome all of you. And I shall begin with Dr. Michael Barak. But before that, I'll just briefly mention today's format. So opening remarks are for about 7 minutes, followed by 15 to 20 minutes Q&A session. So I'll request Dr. Michael Barak to start his opening remarks. And Dr. Barak, we request you to address the following issues. The necessity behind Israel's recent decision to carry out an attack on Iran, especially in the current geopolitical context, Israel's broader strategic vision regarding Iran, the role and current condition of Iran's proxies, including Hamas, Hezbollah, and the possibility of their resurgence, how Israel envisions addressing the future of both Gaza and Iran, and the state of Israel's domestic political landscape amidst ongoing regional tensions. But besides these topics, if you want to touch upon any other issue, then you're most welcome. But we'll request you to keep your focus on these pertinent issues, in your opening remarks. Over to you, Dr. Barak.
Okay, so thanks. First of all, thanks for the invitation. It's good to be here, and thank you, Dr. Abhinav, and thanks for the guest. I will speak about the proxies of Iran. It's very important to know that actually Israel managed to foil the Iranian regime agenda and plan to build a kind of fire belt around Israel by supporting proxies. It's very important to know, if we want to understand the Iranian agenda and the Iranian plan about Israel, and they say it also, the Iranian leadership also has been emphasizing many times that it wants to destroy the state of Israel. If we want to look what is the plan, the strategy to limit the power of Israel, to attack, to diminish its economic power, and to damage its security, we have to look on what is called the Manifest of Khamenei, which was published in February 2019. Officially, it's called the second phase of the Islamic Revolution. And this is kind of a vision that Ali Khamenei published after 40 years of the Islamic Revolution. And I will refer to highlights that were mentioned in this manifest that speak about the Iranian vision about Israel. So first of all, there is an emphasis by Ali Khamenei on supporting the proxies of Iran around Israel. Ali Khamenei says very specifically that the Iran goal is to establish strongholds and to have a foothold in the borders of Israel and to challenge its sovereignty. If we speak about Syria, for example, after the Arab Spring, Bashar al-Assad had to face with rebels, jihadist rebels from the north, and Iran exploited this situation in order to help to Bashar al-Assad, but in the same time, also Iran built several strongholds next to the border with Israel. This was part of the Iranian strategy to challenge the sovereignty of Israel. So in this manifest, Ali Khamenei speaks about how to challenge Israel from the borders, in other words, from Syria. He speaks also about the need to support the proxies of Iran, if it's in Yemen, the Shia militias in Iraq, in Syria and Lebanon, the jewel in the crown of the Iranian revolution. And he speaks also about the need to expel and to destroy the American presence and American influence in the Middle East, in the Muslim lands. And we see that this manifest was actually being implemented by Qasem Soleimani, the head of Al-Quds Force that belongs to the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guards, and which was Qasem Soleimani was targeted in 2020 by a command from Donald Trump. So this is very important. Now, during the war between Israel to Iran, Israel was concerned if some of the proxies will attack Israel, mainly from Iraq and Yemen. We have to remember that the Lebanese proxy of Iran, Hezbollah, this was the jewel in the crown of Iran. This was like the very impressive and the very well-funded proxy of Iran. Thanks God, Israel managed to foil Hezbollah attacks from the north before the Iranian-Israeli war. And right now, Hezbollah, it seems that Hezbollah lost many of its missiles. There are different assumptions that most probably that Hezbollah lost 20% from its powermen and also lost many of its missiles. Of course, there are still missiles that are being hidden inside Lebanon, but Hezbollah did not respond. Has not participated in the last escalation between Iran to Israel because there is a big pressure inside Lebanon from the Nabi Berri, the head of the Lebanese parliament, who warned Hezbollah not to interfere, because if Hezbollah would interfere, it means this is like a kind of suicide mission for Hezbollah. So Hezbollah is in a very weak position. What about the Iraqi militias? Iraqi militias, I think, this is still a threat, not only for the region, but mainly also for Iraq, because right now there was a concern if the Iraqi militias in Iraq would respond or will participate in Iranian response against American troops in Qatar or in Iraq. It did not happen because of pressures from the Prime Minister of Iraq, As-Sudani. And the Houthis, this is the strongest proxy until now inside in the Iranian axis, but there are concerns that the anti-Houthis forces in Yemen, I'm speaking about the transitional Southern Council of Yemen that is supported by the UAE, and the legitimate government of Yemen that is supported by Saudi Arabia. These are in the last during the war between Israel to Iran, there is a discourse by those two anti-Houthis forces that speaks about the need to exploit the opportunity to attack the Houthis as long as Iran is being damaged and found in a very weak position, that this is a golden opportunity to make sure that the Houthis will not occupy more territories in Yemen. So right now we see that the axis of evil, axis of Iran, has been weakened. Iran is the question is if Iran will rehabilitate the proxies, especially Hezbollah and also Hamas. But right now, as we see, Iran is more concerned that that there will be an internal rebel from the inside the civilian society, So it's very doubtful if Iran will send a lot of money to rehabilitate Hezbollah. The proxies are today, after the Iranian-Israeli war, are found in a very weak position. Of course, the Houthis and the Iraqi militias, they are not have been damaged a lot, but they the Houthis, but they are. I think they will not get the same support that it was to be from Iran before the Iranian-Israeli war, and as it seems now, Iraq, for example, maybe I can explain it in the questions because I think I exceeded my time, but there is a threat that Iraq will fall down into a civil war if the Prime Minister of Iraq will have more pressures on the Iraqi militias inside Iraq not to interfere or to attack American troops in Iraq because because Iran wants to have a revenge on what happened. So maybe it can use the proxies without having a footprint of Iran on attacking American troops. So as it seems now, the political issue in Iraq is very fragile, and the things don't seem very good over there. So again, the question now: Iran was discovered as a tiger of a paper. It has an impact on the proxies, and the proxies concerned if Iran will continue its support on funding them. I think it will support, but in a very small measures, not like it was before the war with Israel. And this is something that can have an impact on the proxies. We have to monitor and to see what can happen after that. So this is my very short speaking about the proxies of Iran. I can elaborate it in questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Barak, for giving a very excellent overview of the current situation. And I'll just move on to the other speaker. But before that, may I request you to briefly discuss the state of Israel's domestic political landscape? I mean, we want to know about the future of Bibi, Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu, amidst the current geopolitical tensions. And if you can briefly discuss that, then I'll request the other speaker to join.
Yeah. So right now, after there is a ceasefire between Iran to Israel. The political atmosphere in Israel is that Bibi has to finish the war in Gaza. This is like the next step. If the war, unfortunately we lost 7 Israeli soldiers yesterday. So there is the politics in Israel has got back to discuss about the war in Gaza and also about the abducted Israelis that are still found in Hamas. So it seems that there is going to be a deal with Hamas, as it seems, maybe in 3 weeks. I don't know. This is like a very assumption by the security agencies of Israel. Maybe there will be a deal with Hamas. I hope so. And then the Hamas leadership inside Gaza most probably, like in the framework of this deal, Hamas terrorists will leave Gaza and will find shelter in, I don't know, some places like in Qatar, and this will be the end of the Gaza war. I hope so. It's still too early to claim what will be the future of Gaza, but this is like the general atmosphere. Israel also has to rehabilitate its to support the families, Israeli families who lost their houses because of the Iranian attacks. So also this is something that Israel must to take for the midterm and long term, how to rehabilitate the families that lost their houses. We know that in Beersheba, in south of Israel, there were 4 people of Israeli family that was murdered by a missile of Iran. So we need now, this is the time now to fix and to rebuild the buildings that were destroyed. So this is also a burden on the economic of Israel, but right now, I think it's too early to speak about the future of Bibi Netanyahu. I don't think I'm the authority for that, but there are supposed to be elections in 2026. If the war in Gaza will over, maybe we will, how to say, maybe the elections in Israel will be earlier than 2026.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Barak. And so now I'll request our next speaker, Dr. Gedalia, afterman. Dr. Gedalia, so in your opening remarks, I'll request you to address the following questions. The role of Turkey and Qatar amidst the ongoing crisis and Israel's approach, the Syrian conflict and the rise of radical elements, US-Israel relations and the way forward, Israel's evolving ties with Arab states, most probably will take this, Israel's evolving ties with Arab states, the future of IMAC and comparative assessment of Israeli and Iranian military capabilities. Over to you, Dr. Gedalia.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here and thank you for the invitation. Actually, my topic was a little bit more narrow than that, so I'll start maybe with...
Your voice is not audible. You're not audible.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's better. I mean, these are the questions that we requested, but you can take the liberty of addressing whatever you want to, and if there's anything besides this, that also you can touch.
I'll start with the regional context after the war, and maybe we can talk also about Israel-US at the moment, which is also an interesting element. So basically, as you know, Israel is, as Michael explained, Israel has been at war for the last close to 2 years in Gaza, in the region, and now in Iran. This, in some ways, has complicated its relationship with its Arab neighbors in the region. On the one hand, I think in many ways, the last 12 days have shown that Israel has militarily at least overcome the shock of the 7th of October, of the Hamas attack, and has emerged as the leading military power in the region, right? And its enemies are becoming much weaker from a military perspective. In that sense, I would say that Israel is seen as a stronger...
Dr. Gedalia, can you be a little louder? I think there is still some sort of, it's okay, but still if it's... Yes, it'll be better if it's slightly louder. Yeah.
Is that better? I don't know, it might be a problem with the setting. So in that sense, in the military sense, I think Israel is in a stronger position and has more to offer to its Arab neighbors. And we have new opportunities. There's talk about the Abraham Accord expanding to relationship with Lebanon, with Syria. We just heard yesterday that Israel is having direct talks with Syria and the regime there about possible normalization. All of this is a new reality. But it also brings complications to the region and to the future of potential normalization, especially in the Gulf. On the one hand, the fact that Israel is stronger militarily doesn't necessarily make it more attractive as an actual partner for building the region together. And you hear quite a bit of criticism from a region that's pushing to more of a geo-economic vision. If you talk, as you know, India is very involved in this. If you talk to the Gulf countries, to Saudi Arabia, to the UAE, the vision is geo-economic more than military driven. And these kind of wars are seen as clashing with that vision. People in the region are wondering whether this kind of war is leading, or even the results of the current war, as Michael discussed, is this leading to more stability in the region or instability? As we know, the war in Gaza is still going on, and that's a sore point not only for Israelis, as Michael said, but very much in the region. So dealing with the war in Gaza, ending the war in Gaza would be a very important step. And I think it's also important to mention that there's skepticism in the region about the United States in general, longer term, and also about President Trump. Is he trustworthy longer term? Can they count on him? You probably remember only a few weeks ago, a lot has happened, but we remember President Trump's visit to the Gulf and how that was seen as a new kind of partnership between Israel, between the US and Saudi Arabia, the UAE. The Gulf states felt like they've been heard by the Americans, and suddenly the decision to allow Israel to attack and then for the US to actually join the attack was seen as going against that, right? As almost, by some, if you want to be emotional, almost as a betrayal. So that's also impacting the mood, I would say, in the region, and this is ongoing and dynamic. But so if we look forward at the situation, I think, and where the region wants to go, especially the Gulf countries, then I would say that on the one hand, of course, military power remains a very important, a very decisive element. But on the other hand, the envisioned future that these countries want to move to is geoeconomic. And we need to find ways to move forward. Israel needs to find ways to be part of that vision, not only the military power vision, but the geoeconomic, the regional cooperation vision. And in that sense, I think that IMEC, I think that I2U2, I think these cross-regional visions of cooperation are only more relevant today. And I think that India specifically has an important role to play in advancing this discussion, again, moving from regional confrontation to regional cooperation. We know the potential. A lot of the underlying strategic issues haven't changed because of the war between Iran and Israel. I think the kind of economic focus, geoeconomic focus of these initiatives make them very relevant. This is a long-term strategic vision, so it's not 12 days, it's not 12 months. We're talking 20 and 30 years into the future. We're talking about recreating West Asia, recreating the region in a different way, moving away from these instabilities that we've seen now. Of course, economic diplomacy is very different to raw military power, and I think over time, if we're looking for something that needs to be stable long-term, this is the way to go. If we're looking at the geopolitical game, so on the one hand, as we said, the US is very much back in the region as a military power, but the regional countries are also still looking to balance with other superpowers, right? With China and Russia. Of course, India is becoming a very important region a very important player in the region, and this kind of cooperation, this kind of minilateral cooperation, I think will give us the stability to work with. I think when we're trying to move forward, we need to maybe adapt this vision, especially I2U2, but IMEC too. How can we make it relevant to the current situation? And in that sense, I think we need to think about IMEC beyond infrastructure, right? So it's not only the rail, or it's not only the port. We need to think about how we cooperate on issues like green energy, on technology, even maritime security. I think we need to have a kind of a new discussion following the recent changes and see how we can create regional integration. Now, I might just say one word or two about Israel-US relationships following the war. So obviously, the Netanyahu government succeeded in convincing Trump to join the war and to attack the Iranian nuclear sites, and that's a very substantial achievement for Israel, for Netanyahu personally. As you know, this is an issue that he's been pushing for many years. On the other hand, we've been also seeing signs of complexity in the relationship. I'm not sure if you've been following, but yesterday we had exchanges where the Americans were telling the Israelis not to attack Iran after the ceasefire and other elements. So there's a different game. In some ways, once the Americans take ownership of the situation, then they have more of a say than the Israelis and more of a say than the other players. And we have this interesting dynamic where we have America, of course, is the strongest player in the region, which shapes things, but we also see Israel and other regional players trying to shape the narrative and the regional developments through the United States. I think I'll stop there and we can continue in the questions.
Thank you, Dr. Gedalia, and we'll get back to you during the Q&A session. But before that, I'll invite Mr. Burzin Wagmar. Burzin, I have the following issues for you, if you can throw light upon these issues. The conflict dimensions within Iran, prospects of regime change and internal political dynamics, Iran's military leadership, succession issues in the Shia leadership, its capabilities to carry out attacks, implications for global geopolitics, including potential reactions from China and Russia, India's overall stakes and strategic considerations in the current scenario. But feel free to address other issues if you want to.
Good afternoon from London, England. The geopolitical aspects of China, India, and the others can be left to a discussion period. I would like to concentrate on Iran and Iran alone in my remarks at present. Ta'asua and Ashura 2025, 1447 Hijri, Khamenei's last Muharram. The Republic has long pursued a centralizing ideological project, often under the banner of the glorious Islamic Revolution. But analyses of Iran and neighboring Pakistan show such projects frequently rely on minoritarian suppression to cement state legitimacy, whether it's the Zoroastrian legacy being overshadowed by Shia orthodoxy or the marginalized voices of non-Persian minorities, the unity projected by Tehran often masks fracture lines beneath. A hallmark of post-79 Iran has been the profound growth of security and paramilitary structures designed not just to repel foreign threats. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the Pasdaran, intelligence services, Wazarat-e Amniyat va Ittilaat-e Keshvar, and religious institutions operate not only as guardians of the state, but as arbiters of identity and faith. And yet Iran is a mosaic, not a monolith, as its identity is contested, negotiated, and never fully absorbed by Tehran's orthodoxies. The end of an era, from revolutionary charisma to institutional entropy. Khamenei's rise in 1989 inaugurated Islam's Second Republic, the first which started from February 79, ladies and gentlemen, to Khomeini's demise in June 89, following which the Second Republic is which we are still living through. And that was less animated by revolutionary zeal, more defined by bureaucratic inertia and the deepening of a clerical security oligarchy. Unlike Khomeini's charismatic founding figure, Khamenei has leaned heavily on institutional support, particularly the IRGC, to preserve regime unity and suppress popular dissent. Cracks in the Velayat-e-Faqih. The doctrine of Velayat-e-Faqih, once buttressed by revolutionary myth and clerical authority, now faces fragmentation on multiple fronts. Internal clerical dissent. Traditional Shia authorities, both within Iran and in Najaf, as well as Lebanon, remain deeply suspicious of its theoretical foundations and practical excesses. Popular and generational fatigue. Successive protest movements, the Green Movement, 2017 to 2022, and the recent Zan Zendagi Azadi wave indicate that its legitimacy is evaporating among both the educated and the subaltern. Doctrinal exhaustion. The clerical ideological edifice is discursively and socially exhausted, if not dead, because the centralizing theological narrative has lost its grip on a society that is multifaceted, globalized, fragmented, socially aware, socially wired, and deeply disillusioned by decades of authoritarian stagnation. IRGC as a successor state from garrison to governing force. Projected onward, the IRGC appears poised to reshape the post-Khamenei landscape. Kingmakers in succession. Analysts argue the IRGC will be the arbiter of this transition, with the power to appoint a pliant leader or even bypass the supreme leader, the Rahbar, entirely. State within a state. The guards already command vast economic assets, construction, smuggling, sanctions-busting conglomerates under policies cloaked as a resistance economy, close unquote. Shifting foreign policy engine. With clerical authority fracturing, the IRGC may feel emboldened to escalate its paramilitary and proxy campaigns not as subordinate agents, but as architects of Iran's posturing abroad. This would imply not merely a tactical shift, but a radical overhaul from clerical theocratic primacy to a Praetorian security oligarchy, tacitly legitimized by constitutional forms but driven by paramilitary logic. The succession dilemma: clergy, military, or puppet. Once Khamenei exits the stage, one would have to highlight the institutionally induced competition parameters. So the IRGC, the clerical establishment, and factions within the Beit inner circle are likely locked in a power scramble. Potential scenarios range from a puppet Faqih conforming to military will, to the IRGC asserting overt control, to even institutional collapse if factionalism overtakes centripetal cohesion. The future of the Islamic Republic hinges not on elections or clerical consensus, but on which faction controls the deep state's organs of coercion and whether irredentist authority can morph into governance legitimacy. Cultural aftershocks, from clerical hegemony to militarist haze. Should the IRGC consolidate its dominance, then the Velayat-e-Faqih will be stripped of its institutional role and relegated to a performative facade, a relic with ceremonial weight but not any real control anymore. The IRGC's model: paramilitarized governance, ideological economy, proxy entanglement, will become the nominal core ideology, not clerical jurisprudence, of the Ithna Ashari 12 Shia Ja'afri madhab or school. Civil society, already beleaguered, will face harsher repression under a regime that views every cultural or social movement as a threat to order. I argue such a transformation may mark the end of the Second Republic of Iran, a shift from a theocratic national state to a militarized deep state, lacking ideological cohesion and increasingly trapping itself in cyclical crises. Iran's era of velayat-e-faqih, born in revolutionary fervor, has faltered under bureaucratic sclerosis and ideological exhaustion. With Khamenei near the end of his tenure, the IRGC is ready to ascend, not overtly overthrowing the clergy, but absorbing its authority, militarizing governance, and preparing for a struggle, internal and even external. Unless Iran reinvents itself on more inclusive terms, integrating cultural pluralism, restoring popular legitimacy, and redemocratizing its religious scholarship, it will enter a new era of authoritarianism, not clerical, but paramilitary, and perhaps more brittle and insecure for times to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Farzeen, for giving an excellent overview of Iran's internal conflict dynamics and what are the possible and likely scenarios in Iran after this conflict. In fact, I mean, this all looks like something very confused and a mixed setup in which military IRGC plays a very crucial role and the institution of Khamenei Faqih is relegated to the background. But once again, this raises several questions that the original discussion about Iran has always begun with the idea of regime change. I've spoken to many Israeli experts and many Western experts. They have discussed whether it's possible or not. That's again a different question. But once again, I'll begin the Q&A session with this question: that what is the likely future of the regime change? So now, having asked this question, I'll just open the house for the question, and if anyone wants to ask a question, you can type your questions in the chat box or even raise your hand and directly ask your question. But Burzeen, I'll just request you to begin the session by the future possibilities of a proper regime change.
If wishes were horses, beggars would ride, is my first point. It is a strong state, Dr. Pandya. What is said for Pakistan often applies also, insofar as I'm concerned, to Iran.
Hello.
Many stakeholders who are entirely suicidal idiots.
Yeah. We lost your voice, Farzeen. Can you just repeat the last sentence?
Yeah, I'll just state what I said again, that in the Iranian context, what applies to Pakistan also applies to Iran, that it is a strong state, it is a failing state which refuses to fail. And therein, one-to-many security apparatus and stakeholders who will not see it falter. Remember also, Abhinav, that Khamenei once remarked years ago, we are not exactly Allende in Chile who will be snuffed out, referring to the CIA and the 73 revolution. And of course, he had in mind what was done in 1953 when Mossadegh was eased out of office by us, London and DC. So that plays quite heavily on his mind. And of course, they're not going to easily give up power. If anything, I've also argued in media broadcasts this week that some would say Iran is facing its Berlin moment, just as the Allies converged in April 45 and a certain other individual was in a bunker, and this time Khamenei is in a bunker in northeast Tehran too. The analogy need not be strained, but it's quite relevant because we are talking about a regime which conducts Holocaust denial cartoon competitions. And of course, daily TV sitcoms have reruns of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion alongside cooking shows for bored housewives. So that's a present day Iran for you as such. So that needs to be put into context. But he would prefer Abhinav to go down a martyr because that feeds into this exaggerated Shia victimhood mentality and disposition rather than cave in or capitulate. Because what else does he have to show for himself currently? It is increasingly evident to the IRGC and the other uniformed sorts who have a stake in the system that the clerics are left blinking in the sunlight, dazed, confused. Khamenei's weak approach in the face of Israel's relentless assaults, not just the most recent, but the previous two as such, and that they just don't know how to hold the fort of the system, as it were, or the country, and that we would increasingly have to take over. And that is pretty much writing on the wall. And Khamenei has always been leery of the Revolutionary Guards and has leaned quite heavily on them, particularly after Abhinav, when the last, and I say not voice of opposition or resistance to him, but a checking force was when Rafsanjani died in 2017. There was nothing to hold him back. And after all, it was Rafsanjani who eased him into office back in June 89. And of course, he had a falling out with Rafsanjani over the years too, papered over by cracks of unity on the forefront. And Khamenei has fallen out with every president since 89, Abhinav. Make no mistake. And he has humiliated them tacitly when in office too. It's just the way he operates, and he keeps the system in perpetual flux as such. But it's clearly not paid off, and the office is thoroughly discredited of the supreme leader.
Thank you. Thank you, President. So now we have two questions, and I'll just read out the questions. What role can India really play in this conflict without taking sides? And second one is, Iran has banned the IAEA until it gets security guarantees. What is supposed to give these guarantees, and what kind of guarantees are these supposed to be? So regarding the India question, I would like to add something to it. I mean, what are India's primary concerns in this? I mean, there's one theory that, after I've heard, and I've also repeatedly mentioned in my articles, that the growing proximity between General Asim Munir and the Americans, it raises fears, it raises eyebrows in New Delhi, because the whole thing looks like the redux of America's Afghan invasion in 2001. And if Pakistan ends up providing all kinds of logistics and facilities and other air bases to the US, in the longer run. I mean, for example, hypothetically, if this escalates, then Pakistan becomes very crucial player in this entire region, Iran, Central Asia. So that is something which will not go down well with Delhi. But overall, I mean, how do you look at India's overall? Whoever wants to ask this question, but I guess, Warzin, you can take the India question. I mean, if you want to know.
Maybe.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yes, Dr. Barak, sure.
I know there is a Shia community inside India.
Yes. Yeah.
So maybe India can play a soft power, like promoting peace narratives inside India, to speak about the importance of not absorbing or being influenced by radical narratives of like states who support radical narratives like Iran or others. So this is like can be a neutral role by India, like to promote peace narratives. Also to be part of Israel, to be a very important ally of Israel and the other regional actors on economic initiatives. Like now there is. You asked me what is the atmosphere in Israel. So now after the war in Iran, when the war in Gaza will end, there are discussions that maybe Saudi Arabia can be normalized ties with Israel. So India can join to these moderate state alliance in the region, and to promote again peace narratives in the region, to cultivate the economic ties between Israel and other the Abrahamic states. I think India is known by its peaceful narrative and the coexistence. So definitely India has a very important role in that.
Thank you, Michael. Anyone else wants to take this question?
May I just come in briefly?
Yeah.
Michael, I'm a bit skeptical of the Indian Muslim population, whether Shia or Sunni. And incidentally, India is home to the largest 12er Ithna Ashari Imami Jafri population in the world. That has been uppermost in Tehran's mind since 79 in dealing with India, in that it has been cagey not to be too critical of India as well, though Khamenei has not been averse to mentioning the so-called plight of Kashmiri Muslims in India, which is a bit absurd, which he also did back in August 2024, if you recollect. And I had mentioned in my broadcasts therein too that it is odd because in the Kashmir insurgency, which started from June 88 onwards, and in a way is still ongoing in India, it's only Sunnis who have been suicide bombers or paramilitary agents who crossed over to Pakistan for training and infiltration and the like. Kashmiri indigenous Shia have had no truck in problems, irredentist issues with the administration in New Delhi, or with a sense of, being part of India as such. They may chafe under Indian rule, have has disgruntled elements is another matter, but they have never actively participated. The entire movement of Kashmiri militancy has been primarily Sunni Hanafi driven. So that is one thing to be said. Insofar as the other aspects of the Indian Shia population is concerned, that falls in line with the Indian Sunni population and, in a larger sense, South Asian Muslim population thinking, where they simply cannot be magnanimous enough, intellectually or spiritually speaking, to realize that there is such a thing as a Jewish homeland, and Zionism is just a manifestation of Jewish nationalism, just as Pakistan was predicated on Muslim nationalism. But that sense of generosity seems to be patently lacking when you try to have an intellectual discourse, which I do, even with South Asian Muslims, as a non-Hindu and non-Muslim that I am. But I do firmly do so, and I never seem to get that message across, though I try, and I bring that point in very stridently, that it is just, Zionism is nothing but a manifestation of nationalism, which can be seen as Buddhist nationalism in Sri Lanka, Hindu nationalism in India, or Muslim nationalism in Pakistan. So there is nothing so extraordinary or unpalatable about it, and that you ought to be able to broaden your horizons to accept it for what it's worth.
Thank you, Burzine. And I think I saw that we have General Khandare with us. General Khandare is one of the most refined experts on security and foreign policy issues, and he has just, basically finished his tenure as a principal advisor to the Ministry of Defense. In case if he is here, then I'll request you, General Khandare, to share your thoughts briefly on India's stakes, because I guess he is the man who has been within the system. He has served in the Indian Army for decades, and I guess he's the best person to answer this question. So briefly, I will request you to share your thoughts.
Yeah, thank you, Abhinav, for getting me here. And this is again a decisive moment for India, a very delicate position India has to take, balancing between Israel and Iran. And for us, both are important. At the same time, we value the position that Israel has always taken for India in terms of a lot of help that we get from Israel, and quite vocal about it. So I think our foundational strength between Israel and India will continue, but we'll have to make some special efforts as related to Iran is concerned. I think it's a bit too early to decide on what will happen, but I agree with Burzine in one of the issues about the credibility of USA and the credibility of Donald Trump. That's a very big question mark in India at the moment, and not only related to the recent conflict between Iran and Israel, but also between what has happened between India and Pakistan. I think interesting time. Let us see how it unfolds.
Thank you very much, General Khandare. And just a personal thought that I would like to share. At least we can begin with declaring Hamas as a terrorist organization, because Hamas, now it's directly involved with the Kashmiri terrorist groups. There were ample evidences in the recent past where Hamas boys were seen attending the meetings in Kashmir. Okay. Thank you. So I
agree with you. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. So we have next question. Iran has banned the IAEA until it gets security guarantees. Who is supposed to give these guarantees, and what kind of guarantees are these supposed to be? Briefly, then we have another question also. Whoever wants to take this question.
If I may briefly come in,
yeah.
Iran has had a very testy period since 31st May 2025, when the interim report under Director General Rafael Grossi was submitted. And on 1st June 2025, 19 of the 35 board members formally announced that Iran is in flagrant violation of its obligations as an NPT signatory. Now, that has been contested and passed about as fake news and other aspects on social media, but that's social media for you. That report was a damning report and a thoroughgoing indictment, because not only do we have enrichment to the tune of 90% of near weapons grade, quite frankly, for enough for 10 nuclear warheads. That is to say, Iran is on the cusp of breaking out, which was always a fear, even going back to the JCPOA in 2015 when it was passed, that it could break out sometime down the line. And the question is, it could, Abhinav, and here's the desperation thing that has been put about as how Iran's asymmetric lashing out could unfold in times to come, God forbid, is that Khamenei and the IRGC, who controls the ballistic missile and nuclear program, could mount a crude, hastily assembled device on any one of their missiles. It need not be a sophisticated one on the North Korean models that they currently possess to launch something. And the fact that the IAEA report of 31st May 2025 also found 3 more sites which were hitherto not known, including Turkuzabad, which is a suburb of Tehran, which was passed off as a carpet cleaning factory, which then begs the question, why were uranium traces found of all things in a carpet cleaning factory? And the other site was Varamin, which is near the new Khomeini International Airport, southwest Tehran, and also another site at Lavizan Shan in northeast Tehran, which apparently is where Khamenei is reputed to be bunkered currently. So the IAEA has entire credibility. It is Iran that has to rise to the occasion and to let them in to do their job, because Iran had removed sensors and cameras at all the sites, Natanz, Arak, Isfahan, and elsewhere, which needs to be looked into and revived if they want to come in from the cold and need an off-ramp.
Thank you. Thank you, Buzin. So now we have 2 more questions from Dr. Raj. Given the ongoing geopolitical shifts and heightened tensions between Israel and Iran, what realistic strategies can regional actors in West Asia adopt to advance de-escalation efforts while managing domestic political pressures and intricate external alliances? First, I'll request the speakers to answer this question, and then I'll go to the second question. Yeah, Dr. Gedalia. Yes, yeah.
Thank you. I would just say that, as I said, I think going for geoeconomic initiatives like IMEC, that would be a good way to move towards stabilizing the region, having more regional cooperation. I think it's a bit optimistic now, but down the track, given that India has good relationship with both Iran and with Israel, of course, I think China presents itself as a mediator, but why not India in the future? So I think that could be something to look at. And also as a way for India to manage its tensions. I think we mentioned the concerns in India and in the region over the role of the United States. If India wants to mitigate that, then I think a more active role in the region on the economic side would be the way to go.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Dalia. And the next question is, what role do you believe academic institutions and civil society can play in depolarizing discourse and fostering informed, constructive engagement both within the region and the global stage? Dr. Barak, would you like to take this question?
Yeah, it's also important. Like this is like the meetings between students from the region of Asia and East Asia and West Asia. It's very important to present the narratives of each state. Those kinds of meetings, the academy has to be conduct more meetings with students from West Asia in order to break the walls of sometimes ignorance or lack of knowledge. So by cultivating the academic ties, it's definitely can break the walls. For example, we in Reichman University, we have students from the Gulf states, the UAE, and even Saudi Arabia. And this is something very particular because they also expose what is the complexity of the Israeli society. So indeed, if we see more academic members from West Asia and East Asia, writing together articles, conducting webinars and others, and to have programs, exchange of students, this can definitely cultivate kind of soft power, and that will be more adhere to moderate narratives and not radical narratives like Iran is doing for the last 40 years.
Thank you. We have another question from Mr. Arun Anand. Israel-Hamas ceasefire resulted in Hamas getting a breather to regroup and build its capabilities, and we see now Israel fighting Hamas. What is the possibility that Iran would be using the same template, especially with the support of Russia and China? Whoever wants to take this question, please feel free. Yeah.
Right now, the main challenge is how to rescue the remain of the hostages, Israeli hostages from Hamas. There is after the elimination of the military leadership of Hamas, there is only one problematic figure, which is called Izzadin el-Haddad. He is the one. This is a Hamas figure that was responsible of the 7th of October massacre. He has overtaken the military leadership of Hamas, and this is like the main obstacle for getting to a deal between Israel to Hamas to release the hostages. This is the main problem. Israel all the time emphasized that if the hostages will be rescued, so the Gaza war will end. And right now we see that the civilian society in Gaza has been kind of abducted by Hamas leadership. And we see more criticism in social media networks from the common people and also by the Salafi stream in Gaza. They criticize Hamas for bringing disaster on Gaza. They criticizing Hamas for building alliance and relations with Iran. They say that Iran is actually exploited Hamas to bring this disaster. So we see that there is a increasing criticism from the Palestinians inside Gaza against Hamas. Now the question is, when the war, like I mentioned that the deal between Israel to Hamas most probably will include the expulsion of Hamas leadership that remained in Gaza from Gaza. Most probably that we find shelter in Qatar or Turkey, I don't know where, but because Gaza, as you know, there are several plans by Israel, United States, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, UAE to rehabilitate Gaza. And the question is who will rule in Gaza? If it will be the Palestinian Authority or other actor, but Israel, of course, will not let that the new, let's say, reformed Palestinian Authority, if it will be the actor that will rule in Gaza Strip, Israel will not permit that Hamas will be part of the Palestinian Authority. There are some supporters in Hamas for problematic issue. We don't want to see that Hamas is going back to power. So there should be this kind of mechanism that will make sure that there will not be Hamas members and also not Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which is extremely deeply connected to the Iranian regime and influenced by Khomeini ideology. So this is for the long run. This is a program that if we want that Gaza will be de-radicalized, and so there should be a kind mechanism global that Israel should be part of it, maybe India, I don't know, but that will make sure that Gaza will not become again radical and a platform to attack Israel.
Dr. Gedalia, you want to say something?
Yeah, just on the Iran aspects of things. Obviously, for the Iranians, it's part of the calculation, right? They would try and get as much space as they can to redevelop their program. We know already that they say they moved enriched uranium. The problem is that we've seen a spectacular military operation, including the Israelis and the Americans, and they achieved, this is where they got to militarily. So how do you get to the next stage? And I think that has to be through an agreement in the end of the day, because Israel and the US, for different reasons, don't have an interest in continuing the war with Iran indefinitely. So I think, yes, the Iranians will try to get as much space as they can. Other actors like Russia and China will seek opportunities to undermine, especially the US, with other efforts as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gedalia. Sai, you wanted to ask the question? Can you hear me, Sai?
Yes, Dr. Pandya.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, Dr. Pandya, I can hear you.
Yeah. Please keep your
So I
question
have
precise,
two questions.
short and precise. Yeah.
Yeah, yes, Doctor. Yes, Doctor. Regarding the concept of regime change, I'm playing sort of a devil's advocate, but we have seen that it never works out in West Asia, and it draws into a long conflict. So, keeping in that in view, how does the panel think about the concept of regime change, and how would it uh, show itself in the future if that happens? And the second question is, in the last couple of weeks, we have seen the anti-Israeli and lobby taking a huge turn, and the MAGA base already being anti-Semitic, uh, becoming very vocal. How do you see that affecting President Trump's approach towards Israel in the future, especially when the primaries or the Senate elections come in the future? Thank you.
Can I take
Yeah.
the Iran bit, please?
Yeah, sure.
There is going to be no rosy dawn if Khamenei caves in the next half hour, tomorrow, in a week, or a month's time, because we could have a far, and as I've pointed out in my presentation today, a far and away more hardline, Shia, Messianic, millenarian-minded regime that would come into force. And as I have alluded, I believe, it could turn out to be a militarized state like Egypt or Pakistan. Just as in Pakistan in 58, when Iskandar Mirza and the military took over once and for all because of the stupidity and ineptitude of the bureaucrats who ran the show from Jinnah's death in 48 up to 58. And finally, the military stepped in, and that was the first time the military did step into Pakistan in October 58 for a military coup, because these civilians don't know how to run a place, sort of thing. And that mentality has been embedded since then in the garrison's psyche in the army barracks. This is what I believe will play out here with the Revolutionary Guards, that the mullahs can sit in comb in the seminaries dealing with their Islamic mysticism and theology texts. They don't know how to run the show on a global stage. They're inept at these things, and we will have to increasingly step in to save the regime and the ideals of the revolution, to which we also as pious Shia are wedded to. So what you will have, I feel, is you could have a far more repressive regime. And believe it or not, what will already happen, and is happening as I speak, is that the security apparatus is coming down harshly on those, in any case, elements of civil society who were defying, with women going around unveiled, as we saw in the last few months and the like. It is going to become very, very grim for them in the next few coming weeks. And already with the paranoia of the regime, given that the intelligence failures have been of Herculean proportions, if I was an Iranian government official, I would just wonder, how is it that Israel has penetrated to the very core of Khamenei's internal command structure? So much so that he does not even allow the TV cameras to broadcast. It is a recording done, and he's wearing a heavy bulletproof vest now, that you can tell from last Wednesday's broadcast. Michael, with the brown curtain, because normally there's a blue curtain, and I believe this is most probably some IRGC media operational office where he was speaking from, or some such thing. And he is not using any smartphone or telecommunications equipment, but only verbal messages like Shinwar was using through a trusted aide. So the regime is pretty beleaguered, and it will lash out in this case towards its own population. That is what I believe. So regime change is all very well, because the Iranian opposition is useless, utterly useless and purposeless in the diaspora. They may all have a goal to remove the regime, but then what next? They have no plan at all, because the Persian mindset is so individualistic and egoistic that it can never bring itself to a unifying force to achieve a critical mass of anything as such. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Barzin. Dr. Gedalia, you want to speak something about this?
Yeah, sure. Just on that question. So obviously in Israel, we're hearing a lot of talk about regime change, and it's kind of a dream also in some American circles. The question is, what's the plan? Let's say you topple the regime. Is there a day after plan? Is there alternative leadership? We've seen in the past, especially in Iraq, that the precedents are not very encouraging. And in that sense, again, what's better for regional stability, what's better for Israel's security, I think is a question that we should ask ourselves. Regarding Trump and Israel relations, yes, of course, it's complicated. It was complicated before the recent war with Iran, but I think now it's even more complicated. On the one hand, Trump is the only American president to actually take this action and fight with Israel against Iran. On the other hand, he can also flip on Israel if Israel is seen to defy him or something like that, and go against what he thinks is Americans' interests. So I think the relationship between Israel and the United States under Trump is much less predictable than in the past, and that's something that Israeli strategists will have to take into account.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gedalia. So I think now we are already coming close to our today's discussion. We have one question from Ambika Bhargav, and she is asking that if the future locations are known about the renewal of Iran's nuclear program or anything like that, will there be more operations? I mean, will there be more bombings? What can we assume? Like, is it the end of the hostilities, or is it like some kind of a strategic or tactical pause in the operations?
Gedalia and Mike, why don't you both go first, then I'll come in.
Yeah, Mike and
You want to
Gedalia.
go first, Michael? Or...
Yeah, it's still early to determine if there are some smuggled, that there are still a large amount of uranium that is found in Iran. There are the Pentagon said, for the American Pentagon said that the operation, the war has not destroyed entirely the nuclear program of Iran. The IDF, the Israeli army, and the Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu say that the war achieved its goal to destroy. So it's still too early to determine. Now let's assume that Iran still have the ability to build to continue with the nuclear program. What can it be? So I think that Israel will demand from United States and from Sabah and from this organization that is has to supervise the nuclear dissemination, to make sure that Iran will sign on a deal that will not enrich anymore the uranium. I don't know. It's still early to determine, but I don't think that the military option will be still on the table. I think the diplomatic way will be the way to solve this problem.
Thank you, Dr. Gedalia.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think we might see more attacks if something big happens, but I think both the United States and Israel are assuming that Iran still has some capabilities, and the way to deal with it would be probably a new agreement.
Yeah. Barzin, you want to say something?
Trump's capricity is only too well known and outpaces his reputation. My point is, neo-isolationists, American neo-isolationists on the right and left are loath to see any such entanglements, and that is also tied in with questions of anti-Semitism and Jewish disproportionate influence in America and all those other unsavory notions. And that Trump is being taken for a sucker and dragged into fights which he precisely doesn't want, because that's what he projected to his MAGA base. Okay, all very well. But here's my point. He has done these strikes once because Iran possessing nukes is a red line with him, regardless of what his MAGA base says or not. Now that he is in the fray of it, would that we were to discover anything else, and if Putin has helped Tehran to siphon off and hide somewhere, and there is unsubstantiated rumors to the effect that the Russians could have assisted them in that, it would be difficult for Trump to lose face. Once he's in it, and quite frankly, he is in it now, he would have to embark on another round of bombing as such. And I sincerely hope he does so and does not deflect from it, because Mike Gedalia, it's a question of his ego and face. And we need to play to that. We will have to play to that, because you can't look like a wimp and a loser because That's the one thing he hates in life the most, to look like a loser. Calling Obama a loser over the JCPOA, which he did and taunted, and that I could have had a better deal, I could have done this and that. Well, that is what we need to consistently play up to. And we need all elements to bring that to bear to play upon him, that if something is discovered tomorrow or in times to come, another round is in the offing, and this was not just a complete one-off, because that is what he tacitly told Tehran as the bombers were on their way. And yes, as we do know now from Mike from Amwaj Media reported that a top unnamed Tehrani official said that Tehran was intimated that the B-2 bombers were on their way, and it is only these 3 sites we are striking and not doing anything more. Thank you very much. And of course, the Iranians sat impotently as it happened. So it's not that they were not informed, they were not extended the courtesy of not knowing that the strikes were happening. But if it happens that another round is required, so be it, and I would say go for it. And we must bring maximum pressure on Trump to do that if it's discovered, because he would be left losing face with egg dripping down his face in the eyes of the world. And that's one thing he cannot stand. And we must exploit that weakness to the hilt.
So thank you very much, Burzine. So I guess, we are already running past our time, but one last question, and I want a real quick answer, if you can. So what I mean, after Iran, I think, the next chapter, that is the real, question, I think, which is disturbing the strategic experts. And what's happening in Ankara, that in a way really disturbs me. We have already seen what happened in Syria with the regime change, and now you have a terrorist, a wanted terrorist running a government in Syria. So is it going to be something with the Turks, after this, how do you look at that?
Turkey has its, again, the axis of radical Shia in the region, I think, has been replaced by the Sunni pro-Turkish axis. Turkey has an ambition to establish bases in Syria, in Libya, in Somalia. If we look on the last years, we see that there is empowerment and increase in the number of maritime vessels of Turkey. Turkey has built a lot of naval bases. So Turkey has an ambition to expand its influence by soft power and also hard power. We saw that it participated in the war against Armenia, Nagorno-Karabakh. I'm concerned about Turkey. I lived in Turkey for a long time, and I'm concerned about the shifts, the changes in Turkey, because we see that Turkey, unfortunately, Ankara and Istanbul, has transformed into headquarters of the Muslim Brotherhood. We see that the Muslim Brotherhood from Yemen and from Egypt have been based inside Turkey. For example, I published an article about for example, there is a very radical Muslim Brotherhood faction that is based in Ankara and Istanbul. It's called the Stream of Change. This belongs to the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood, and it's called this radical faction of the Muslim Brotherhood calls to destroy the Egyptian regime, to attack the Saudi regime and the UAE, that they call to attack all the moderate Arab states. And we have to know, to bear also Israel, of course, but we have to bear in mind that Turkey, although it's found in they're trying to make peace, to rebuild the relations with Egypt, still Erdogan is permitting to this radical faction of the Muslim Brotherhood to talk very extremely against the Egyptian government. So Turkey, we have to look on the long run, or even the midterm, how Turkey is exploiting the new geopolitical developments in the region, because I assume that Turkey is also using the Palestinian issue and also other conflict zones, also Kashmir, by the way, in India. Turkey wants to pretend that it's protecting and defending the fate of the Sunni all over the world, where the Erdogan managed also to establish soft power in west of Europe, for example, in Germany, by using Milli Gurush. Milli Gurush, like this is was established by Erbakan, the godfather of Erdogan. So again, Erdogan is like Iran, is building this extensive soft power. I don't claim that Turkey is like Iran, because Iran is black or white, is against the West, but Turkey is part of the NATO and has also economic ties with Western states. So now Erdogan is also a good friend of Trump. So the United States has some pressure leverage to take care or to make sure that Turkey will not get to the radical direction. But who knows what will happen? Because still in Syria, Syria has become a pro-Turkish stronghold, and this is something that the international community should follow and monitor to make sure that Turkey is not now exploiting the new situation, the new political development to disseminate radical narratives. This is what it's doing against Israel, also against the German government. This is something that deserves a great attention.
Thank you, Dr. Barak. Dr. Gedalia, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention about Qatar. I was asked and forgot to say, I think recent events in the last war has basically cemented Qatar's role in the region as a strategic player. We see them involved, they were involved apparently in the ceasefire negotiation between Iran and Israel via the United States, and also now on a possible new deal with a ceasefire agreement with Hamas. So in that sense, I think Qatar has positioned itself even better, in a stronger position following the recent war.
Thank you, Dr. Gedalia. And I would also like to mention that Turkey's pan-Turkic ambitions in Central Asia are also equally dangerous and disturbing. And whatever Turkey does, Pakistan is going to be a very steadfast and a very loyal partner in that. And Pakistan recently threatened Israel with its nuke. So I guess we see a new Sunni nexus coming up very strongly, and let's see how it unfolds. So with this, we'd like to conclude today's Usanas Dialogue segment. Thank you very much for joining us today. It was a real pleasure having all the eminent speakers with us today. And so I'll also
only one last thing.
Yes, Ranjanji. Yeah.
I just, I wanted to come in that time.
Yeah, okay.
When you said that, what could India's role be?
Okay.
So I just wanted to put forward one view that both the sides of Iran and Israel have been our partners and our friends for long. In fact, with Iran, we have a relationship which is traditionally, the Sufi movement and the Bhakti movement in India and Sufi movement in Iran, it all began about 650 years back, simultaneously. So with Israel also, we have a very, very good relation since 1992. In the past 1.5 decades, this has been strengthened. So we can play a very pivotal role and very aggressively with the diplomatically and politically both. We can. Our PM has got very good relation with both the heads of states. And we have to make them understand that seriously how to coexist peacefully instead of seeking each other's destruction or heavy-fisted domination of one over the other, which will never be realized. Actually, it will go on fighting, you go on bombing, and we can find out who loses more or who wins. Now, wise people from both the countries, other than the power-hungry politicians, should be nominated by both the sides to engage in such discussions which India can mediate. That's what I think. And we can find a mutually acceptable middle ground. That's the point I wanted to make. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ranjanji. So once again, thanks all of you. And tomorrow we have another interview tomorrow evening, and it's at 6 tomorrow evening, right, Preeti? Is it 6 p.m. tomorrow evening? Is it?
Yes, it's 6:30.
Yeah, so 6:30. So Dr. Daniel Benaim will be joining. Dr. Daniel Benaim is an associate fellow with Middle East Institute, and he is a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Arabian and Peninsular Affairs, the US government, and NSC Senior Director for Speech Writing and Strategic Initiatives and Special Assistant to the President. So again, he is a great scholar on the Middle Eastern affairs, a man who has a direct experience of the field, and tomorrow he'll be here sharing his insights. So if you can join, please join us. Okay, Preeti, you can share the link, meeting link for tomorrow's interview with all our participants today. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless. Thank you.